Namo Phat, good morning. Thanks for joining me for our daily practice check-in. Listen, listen, listen. This beautiful sound calls us back to our true home. The second mindfulness training. Aware of the suffering caused by exploitation, social injustice, stealing, and oppression, I vow to cultivate loving kindness and learn ways to work for the well-being of people, animals, plants, and minerals. I will practice generosity by sharing my time, energy, and material resources with those who are in real need. I am determined not to steal and not to possess anything that should belong to others. I will respect the property of others, but I will prevent others from profiting from human suffering or the suffering of other species on earth. We're reading Ajahn Chah's book, Everything is Teaching Us, for our Dharma lessons, and we're continuing it in a talk called About Being Careful. Once we have done practice, any sort of merit and virtue, we should feel that our part is done. We shouldn't carry it any further. We do it for the purpose of giving up defilements and craving. We don't do it for the purpose of creating defilements, craving, and attachment. Then where will we go? We don't go anywhere. Our practice is correct and true. Most of us Buddhists, though we follow the forms of practice and learning, have a hard time understanding this kind of talk. It's because Mara, meaning ignorance, meaning craving, the desire to get, to have, and to be, enshrouds the mind. We only find temporary happiness. For example, when we are filled with hatred towards someone, it takes over our minds and gives us no peace. We think about the person all the time, thinking what we can do to strike out at him. The thinking never stops. Then maybe one day we get a chance to go to his house and curse him and tell him off. That gives us some release. Does that make an end of our defilements? We found a way to let off steam and we feel better for it, but we haven't rid ourselves of the affliction of anger, have we? There is some happiness in defilement and craving, but it's like this. We're still storing the defilement inside, and when the conditions are right, it will flare up again, even worse than before. Then we will want to find some temporary release again. Do the defilements ever get finished in this way? It's similar when someone's spouse or children die, or when people suffer big financial loss. They drink to relieve their sorrow. They go to a movie to relieve their sorrow. Does it really relieve sorrow? The sorrow actually grows. But for the time being, they can forget about what has happened, so they call it a way to cure their misery. It's like if you have a cut on the bottom of your foot that makes walking painful, anything that contacts it hurts, so you limp along complaining of the discomfort. But if you see a tiger coming your way, you'll take off and start running without any thought of your cut. Fear of the tiger is much more powerful than the pain in your foot. So it's as if the pain is gone. The fear made it something small. You might experience problems at work or at home that seem so big. Then you get drunk, and in that drunken state of more powerful delusion, those problems no longer trouble you so much. You think you solved your problems and relieved your unhappiness, but when you sober up, the old problems are back. So what happened to your solution? You keep suppressing the problems with drink, and they keep coming back. You might end up with cirrhosis of the liver, but you don't get rid of the problems, and then one day you're dead. There's some comfort and happiness here. It's the happiness of fools. It's the way that fools stop their suffering. There's no wisdom here. These different, confused conditions are mixed in the heart that has feeling of well-being. If the mind is allowed to follow its moods and tendencies, it feels some happiness. But this happiness is always storing unhappiness within it. Each time it erupts, our suffering and despair will be worse. It's like having a wound. If we treat it on the surface, but inside it's still infected, it's not cured. It looks okay for a while, but when infection spreads, we have to start cutting. If the inner infection is never cured, we can be operating on the surface again and again with no end in sight. What can be seen from the outside may look fine for a while, but inside, it's the same as before. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. May all beings be at peace. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thanks for joining me today.